Before we begin, if you're enjoying these stories from law enforcement, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It really helps the channel grow, and I'm curious, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your location in the comments. Now, let's get into one of the strangest cases I've ever come across. I am Daniel Cross. For over 15 years before that night when everything turned upside down, I served as sheriff in the town of Millwood, West Virginia. I've thought 1,000 times about how to tell this story, tried to piece it together, but the truth is, there is no order. Time doesn't work the way you think it does. I learned that the hard way. It was September 17th, 1977, at exactly 2:47 in the morning when I got the call that started it all. I was in my office at the sheriff's station, a small brick building on Main Street that had served as the law in Millwood since 1923. The town was quiet that night, the way it usually was. Millwood wasn't the kind of place where much happened. Population 1,847. Most of them coal miners or the families of coal miners. The kind of town where everyone knew everyone, and strangers stood out like blood on snow. I'd been doing paperwork, catching up on incident reports from the week. Nothing serious, just the usual small-town complaints. Mrs. Henderson's dog barking too loud, teenagers racing their cars on Mountain Road, a dispute over property lines between the Talbot brothers. The kind of work that felt important to the people involved but barely registered in the grand scheme of things. The phone rang, cutting through the silence like a knife. I picked it up. Sheriff's office, Cross speaking. It was Millie, the night dispatcher. Her voice had an edge to it, something I'd learned to recognize over the years. Fear, maybe, or just unease. "Daniel, we got a domestic disturbance call. 447 Mullins Road. Caller said there's yelling, sounds of things breaking." Hung up before I could get more details. 447 Mullins Road. The Fletcher House. Carl and Donna Fletcher. Married, 23 years, 2 grown kids who'd moved away to Charleston. Carl worked the Blackwood mine. 3rd shift usually, but maybe he'd called in sick. Domestic calls were always tricky, always tense. "I'm on it. Call Sarah. Have her meet me there if she can." Sarah Brennan was my deputy, 28 years old and sharp as they came. She lived on the other side of town, though, and I'd likely get to the Fletcher place before her. I grabbed my jacket, checked my service revolver, and headed out to my cruiser. The night air was cold for September, with that wet Appalachian chill that got into your bones. The mountains rose up on all sides, black shapes against a slightly less black sky. No moon, just stars scattered like broken glass. Mullins Road was about 15 minutes from the station, winding up into the hills past the old lumber mill and through a stretch of forest that always felt darker than it should. My headlights cut through the mist that hung low over the road, and I could hear the crunch of gravel under my tires. I'd driven this route 100 times. I knew every curve, every pothole, every landmark. The crooked oak tree at mile marker 7, the abandoned gas station with the faded Esso sign, the bridge over Blackwater Creek where Jimmy Parsons had crashed his motorcycle in '73. Everything was exactly where it should be, until I saw the other patrol car. It was parked at the Fletcher house when I pulled up, lights off, empty. Same model as mine, same Millwood Sheriff's Department insignia on the door. Same unit number, Charlie 1, my unit. I sat there for a moment, engine idling, trying to make sense of it. Sarah drove Charlie 2. We only had 2 cruisers in the whole department. There shouldn't be another Charlie 1. Maybe I'd gotten confused. Maybe this was Sarah's car and I'd misremembered the unit number. But I hadn't. I knew my own vehicle. I got out slowly, hand instinctively moving to my gun. Something was very wrong here. The Fletcher house was a small ranch-style home, paint peeling, front porch sagging. The lights were on inside, and I could hear voices. Raised voices. One of them was Carl Fletcher's, slurred and angry. The other was calm, measured, trying to de-escalate. The other voice was mine. I moved toward the front door, my heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. Through the window, I could see Carl Fletcher, swaying drunk, holding a bottle of bourbon. And across from him, trying to talk him down, was a sheriff. Wearing my uniform. My face, my badge, me. I watched myself negotiate with Carl Fletcher, watched myself use the same techniques I'd learned over 15 years of doing this job. Calm voice, non-threatening posture, giving him space but staying ready. I watched myself convince Carl to put down the bottle, to let me check on Donna, who was in the bedroom, scared but unhurt. I was watching myself work a call I hadn't arrived at yet. My hand was shaking as I reached for the door. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Carl Fletcher looked at me, confused. The other me, the one who'd been handling the call, turned around. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. It was like looking in a mirror, except the mirror was three-dimensional and moving independently. Same face, same uniform, same gun belt, same everything. Even the small scar above my left eyebrow from a bar fight in 1968. Even the way I stood, weight on my left leg because my right knee always ached. "Who the hell are you?" I finally managed to ask. The other me frowned. "I'm Sheriff Daniel Cross." "Who the hell are you?" "I'm Sheriff Daniel Cross." Carl Fletcher laughed, a harsh, drunk sound. "Well, ain't this something? 2 sheriffs. Maybe one of you can explain why my wife won't talk to me no more." I couldn't take my eyes off my double. He looked as confused as I felt, but there was something else in his expression too. Recognition. Like he'd been expecting this, or something like it. "We need to talk," the other me said. "Outside." We left Carl in his living room and walked out onto the porch. The other me moved exactly the way I moved. Had the same mannerisms, the same unconscious habits. He pulled at his collar the same way I did when I was uncomfortable. He checked his watch the same way, turning his wrist inward. "What's going on?" I asked. Are you some kind of twin? Some relative I don't know about?" He shook his head. "I'm you, Daniel. I know that doesn't make sense, but it's true. I'm Sheriff Daniel Cross, born February 12, 1935, in Wheeling, West Virginia. My brother Tommy died in the Blackwood mine disaster in 1952. My ex-wife's name is Rachel. We got divorced in 1974 because I worked too much and drank too much and couldn't let her in. Every detail was correct. Things no one else would know." "That's impossible," I said. "I know, but here we are." He looked at his watch. "What time is it for you? When did you get the call from dispatch?" 2:47 a.m., about 20 minutes ago." He nodded slowly. "It's 3:15 for me. I got the call at 2:47 too, but that was 45 minutes ago in my timeline. I've already been here, already talked to Carl, already checked on Donna." He paused. "I was about to leave when you showed up. That doesn't make any sense. None of this makes sense, but it's happening anyway." He pulled something from his pocket and handed it to me. A newspaper, the Millwood Gazette. I looked at the date, September 18th, 1977. Tomorrow's paper. "Where did you get this?" "From the diner. Picked it up this morning." "Well, your tomorrow morning. My this morning." He ran a hand through his hair, the same gesture I made when I was stressed. "Daniel, I think something's wrong with time. I think we're fractured somehow, living the same moments from different positions." I looked at the newspaper, at the date that shouldn't exist yet, at the headlines about events that hadn't happened. My hands were shaking. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. I know. But we need to figure out what's causing it. Because if there are two of us now, there might be more. More? He nodded. I've been feeling strange for days. Like I'm forgetting things I should remember, or remembering things that haven't happened yet. Like time is slipping around me. A car pulled up. Sarah's cruiser, Charlie 2. She got out and jogged toward us, then stopped dead when she saw both of us standing there. "What the hell?" she said. "Sarah," I started, but I didn't know how to finish. She looked between us, her hand moving to her weapon. "Which one of you is real?" "We both are," the other me said. "That's not possible." "And yet," Sarah studied us carefully. Okay, let me think." She pointed at me. "Daniel, what did you eat for dinner tonight?" "Turkey sandwich, same thing I always eat." She pointed at the other me. "And you?" "Turkey sandwich. Same thing I always eat." She tried a different approach. "What was the last thing we talked about before tonight?" I thought back. "Yesterday afternoon. You asked if you could take the weekend off to visit your sister in Morgantown. I said yes." The other me nodded. "Same. Yesterday afternoon, same conversation." Sarah pulled out her radio. "This is Charlie 2. I need backup at 447 Mullins Road. And someone called Doc Hendricks. We got a situation here." "Don't," the other me said. "Sarah, if you call this in, they're going to think one of us is crazy. Or both of us. And I don't think this is a mental health issue. I think something real is happening." "Like what?" "I don't know yet. But calling in backup isn't going to help. We need to figure this out ourselves." Sarah looked at me, waiting for my take. I was the real sheriff, the one she knew. Except the other me was also the real sheriff, and he knew her just as well. "He's right," I said finally. "Let's keep this quiet until we understand what we're dealing with." We left. Carl Fletcher passed out on his couch. Donna locked safely in the bedroom and drove back toward town. 2 cruisers, same unit number, driving in convoy through the West Virginia night. At the station, Sarah made coffee while the other me and I sat across from each other in the office. It was surreal, like conducting an interview with a mirror. "Walk me through your last 48 hours, I said. He did. Every detail matched my own memories, up until tonight. Same calls, same paperwork, same conversations. We'd lived the exact same life right up until the moment we both responded to the Fletcher house. "But you arrived before me," I said. "You were already there." "I was, because in my experience of time I got the call earlier, or I left the station earlier, or something." He rubbed his eyes. "I don't know. Time isn't working right." Sarah came back with coffee and sat down. "I can only see one of you," she said. We both looked at her. "What?" I said. "Right now, looking at you both, I can only see one Sheriff Cross. My brain is telling me there's just one person in this room with me." She pointed at me. "When I focus on you, the other one sort of fades, and when I look at him, you fade. It's like my mind can't process 2 of you existing at once." The other me and I locked eyes. "That might be why no one at the Fletcher house reacted," he said. "Carl saw us as one person. Maybe everyone does. Everyone except us," I added. We sat there in silence, trying to wrap our minds around the impossible. Then the phone rang. Sarah answered it. "Sheriff's office." She listened, her face going pale. "We'll be right there." "What is it?" I asked. "Another call. Disturbance at the old Blackwood mine. Caller said there's someone inside, moving around with a flashlight." The Blackwood mine. The place where my brother died 25 years ago. The place that had been sealed shut since the disaster. The other me stood up. We should both go. Agreed. We drove to the mine in our separate cruisers, Sarah following behind. The mine was about 30 minutes outside of town, deep in the mountains where the coal seams ran rich and dark. The company had closed it after the 1952 disaster, said it was too dangerous to work, too unstable. 47 men died in the collapse. My brother Tommy was one of them. I'd been 17 when it happened. Tommy was 23, married with a baby daughter. He'd gone to work that morning and never came home. They never even recovered all the bodies. The mine swallowed them up and kept them. The entrance was boarded up, chains and warning signs. But the boards were broken, the chains cut. Someone had gone inside. "Stay here," I told Sarah. "Radio for backup if we're not out in 30 minutes. The other me grabbed a flashlight from his cruiser. I did the same. We looked at each other, an unspoken understanding passing between us. We were both thinking about Tommy, about the mine, about the darkness that had taken him. We stepped through the broken boards and into the mine. The air inside was cold and stale, thick with decades of accumulated dust. Our flashlights cut through the black, illuminating support beams and rusted rail tracks. The mine stretched ahead, a throat leading into the mountain's belly. "Hello," I called out. "This is the sheriff. You're trespassing on a condemned mine. Come out now." No response. Just the echo of my voice and the distant sound of water dripping. We moved forward, stepping carefully over debris. The other me walked beside me, his flashlight beam crossing mine. Our footsteps were perfectly synchronized, an eerie rhythm in the darkness. We'd gone maybe 200 yards when we saw it. A third flashlight beam, ahead in the tunnel, and a figure standing in the light. A sheriff, in full uniform, me, again. The figure turned toward us and I could see his face clearly. It was my face, but wrong. Older maybe, or more tired. And his uniform was torn, stained with something dark. Blood. "Which one of you is real?" the bloody me asked. His voice was hoarse, strained. "We all are," the other me said carefully. The bloody me laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's the problem, isn't it? We're all real. We're all Sheriff Daniel Cross, and we're all running out of time." "What happened to you?" I asked, gesturing to the blood. "This?" He looked down at his torn uniform. "This is from the future, your future, 2 days from now." He took a step closer. "Listen to me carefully. Both of you. Something is breaking. Time is breaking. It started at this mine in 1952, and it's been getting worse ever since. And in 48 hours, one of us is going to kill someone." "Who?" the other me demanded. The bloody me looked between us, his eyes haunted. "Ourselves. We're going to kill ourselves, or each other. I don't know which anymore. The timelines are too fractured." I felt cold that had nothing to do with the mine's chill. "That's impossible. Look around," the bloody me said. 3 versions of the same man standing in a condemned mine. Nothing's impossible anymore. He swayed, and I realized he wasn't just bleeding. He was dying. "What do we do?" I asked. "How do we stop this?" "I don't know. I came back to warn you, but I'm too late. I'm always too late." He coughed, blood on his lips. "Don't trust yourself. That's all I can tell you. Don't trust yourself." He collapsed. The other me and I rushed forward, but even as we reached him, he was fading. Not dying, fading, like he was made of smoke dissipating in the air. Within seconds, he was gone. Only the blood remained, dark pools on the mine floor. The other me and I stared at where he'd been, neither of us speaking. Finally, I broke the silence. We need to get out of here. Agreed. We backed out of the mine, keeping our flashlights trained ahead, expecting another version of ourselves to appear at any moment. But the tunnel stayed empty. When we emerged, Sarah was waiting, her gun drawn. "What happened?" she asked. I heard voices. "There was another one," I said. "Another me. He was bleeding. He said something's breaking. Time is breaking." Sarah looked between us. "How many of you are there?" "I don't know." We stood in the parking area outside the mine, 3 people watching the darkness, waiting for more copies of me to emerge. But nothing came. The other me checked his watch. "It's almost 4:30 a.m. I need to get back to the station. I've got morning shift starting soon." "Morning shift? It's still night." "For you. For me, I've been on duty since yesterday, or tomorrow. I can't keep it straight anymore." He walked to his cruiser, then paused. "Daniel, I think we need to figure out what happened here, at this mine. In 1952. The disaster? Maybe it wasn't just a disaster. Maybe it was something else." He drove away, taillights disappearing into the dark. I stood there with Sarah, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 2 hours. "Daniel," Sarah said quietly, "I'm scared." "Me too." We drove back to town as the sun started to rise over the mountains. I kept checking my rearview mirror, expecting to see another version of myself following me, but the road stayed empty. At the station, I tried to write up a report. How do you document meeting yourself? How do you explain that time is breaking and you're fractured across multiple moments? I couldn't, so I just sat there staring at the blank paper. The phone rang. Millie's voice, the day dispatcher now. "Morning, Sheriff. Got a call for you. Someone's reporting a disturbance at the old Blackwood mine." My blood went cold. "What?" "Yeah. Says they saw someone inside with a flashlight." "Want me to send Sarah?" "No, I'll handle it." I hung up and stared at the clock, 6:15 a.m. I'd already answered this call. The other me, the one who just left, he'd answered it 4 hours ago. But from the perspective of linear time, it was just happening now. Time was looping, repeating, fracturing. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, and stopped, because standing outside the station looking in through the window was me. Not the other me from the Fletcher house, not the bloody me from the mine, a different me, older, gray-haired, wearing a sheriff's uniform from a different era. He looked at me with sad, knowing eyes. Then he raised his hand and pointed at me, and mouthed 2 words. "You're next." He turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner. I ran outside, but he was gone. The street was empty except for old Mrs. Henderson walking her dog, the same scene that played out every morning. Sarah came out behind me. "Daniel, what's wrong?" "How many of me did you just see?" "Just you. 1. Why?" I closed my eyes. The fracturing was getting worse. More versions appearing from different times, different timelines, and somewhere, in the chaos of broken time, one of us was going to kill the others. I just didn't know which one yet, or if I was the killer, or the victim, or both. By noon that day, I'd encountered myself 7 times. The first was at the diner, where I walked in for lunch and saw myself already sitting at my usual booth, halfway through a turkey sandwich. He looked up, nodded at me like this was perfectly normal, and went back to eating. The waitress, Betty, only saw one of us. When I tried to sit at a different table, she got confused, insisted I was already seated, and brought my usual order to the other me. I left without eating. The second encounter was at the hardware store. I was picking up batteries for my flashlight when I saw myself coming down the aisle from the opposite direction. This version looked terrible. exhausted, unshaven, eyes red like he hadn't slept in days. "Don't go to the mine," he said as we passed each other. "I already went." "You'll go again. Don't." He kept walking, and I watched him disappear around the corner. When I followed, he was gone. The store owner said he hadn't seen anyone come through. The third was at the gas station. I was filling up my cruiser when another ME pulled up to the pump on the other side. He was cleaner, fresher, like he'd just started his shift. He looked at me with surprise. "You're me," he said. "And you're me. What's happening to us?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." He finished pumping and drove away. I noticed his cruiser had a dent in the rear fender that mine didn't have. Not yet, anyway. The fourth encounter was the one that scared me. I was driving past the elementary school when I saw myself standing on the sidewalk, watching the building. I pulled over and got out. "What are you doing?" I called over. This version of me turned slowly. He was crying, silent tears running down his face. "She's in there," he said. "Who?" "Rachel, our wife. She's picking up Amy from school." Amy, our niece, Tommy's daughter. After Tommy died, Rachel and I had helped raise her. But Rachel left in '74, took Amy with her back to her parents in Ohio. I hadn't seen either of them in 3 years. "Rachel's not here," I said gently. "She's in Ohio. Amy's in Ohio." "Not in my timeline. In mine, we worked it out. We stayed together. Amy's 8 years old now, 3rd grade. Rachel's about to walk out of that building, and I can't talk to her because I'm fragmenting. I can feel it. I'm slipping between times, and soon I'll disappear completely." He looked at me with desperate eyes. "Tell me she was worth it. Tell me fighting for our marriage was the right choice." I didn't know what to say. In my timeline, I'd let Rachel go. I'd buried myself in work and bourbon and convinced myself it was better this way. "She was worth it," I said, though I didn't know if it was true. He nodded, wiped his eyes, and walked away. I watched him go, and as he reached the corner, he flickered, like a bad television signal. Then he was gone. The 5th, 6th, and 7th encounters all happened within an hour. I saw myself directing traffic at an accident scene that hadn't happened yet. I saw myself sitting in my cruiser, writing a report with tomorrow's date at the top. I saw myself standing outside the church where Rachel and I got married, staring at the doors like he was trying to decide whether to go inside. Each version was slightly different. Older, younger, happier, sadder. Different choices, different lives, different timelines, all collapsing into the same space. By the time I got back to the station, Sarah was waiting for me. She had that look on her face, the one that meant she'd found something. "You need to see this," she said. She led me to her desk where she'd spread out old newspaper articles and documents, all of them about the Blackwood mine disaster. "I've been researching," she said. "The official story is that it was a structural collapse. Old supports gave way, tunnel caved in, but look at this." She pointed to an article from the Millwood Gazette, dated September 20th, 1952. The headline read, "Miner describes strange lights before disaster." I read the article. A survivor, one of only 3 men who made it out, described seeing lights that moved wrong, like they were coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. He said time felt strange in the mine that day, like he was moving through molasses. He said he saw his own reflection in the tunnel walls, but the reflections were moving independently. "He saw himself," I said. "Multiple versions. Just like you. So this has happened before." Sarah nodded. "But it gets worse. Look at this." She pulled out another document, this one from the mining company's internal files. She'd gotten them from the county archives. It was a memo, dated September 10th, 1952, 10 days before the disaster. Authorization for temporal excavation experiment, Blackwood Seam No. 7, Project Kronos. Chief Engineer, Dr. Robert Vance, temporal excavation. They were experimenting with time, Sarah said. The coal company. They were trying to mine coal from the future, or the past, or something, and it went wrong. Do we know what happened to this Dr. Vance? He died in the collapse, along with your brother and 45 others. I stared at the documents, pieces clicking into place. The mine wasn't just a mine. It was the site of a temporal experiment, something that had torn a hole in time, and that hole was still there, still bleeding, still causing fractures. We need to go back to the mine, I said. Daniel, the last version of you who went into that mine came out covered in blood. I know, but if this started there, that's where we'll find answers. Before we could leave, the phone rang. Sarah answered it, her face going pale as she listened. We'll be right there, she said, hanging up. What now? Multiple reports of Sheriff Daniel Cross. People are seeing you all over town, in different places, all at the same time. The mayor is freaking out. He wants an explanation. I grabbed my keys. Tell him I'm investigating an incident. Tell him whatever you need to, but we need to get to that mine. We drove out in Sarah's cruiser, leaving my vehicle at the station. I was afraid if I drove my own car, I might encounter another version of myself doing the same thing, and I didn't think I could handle that right now. The mine looked different in daylight, less ominous, more sad. Just a boarded-up hole in the mountain, a memorial to men who died doing dangerous work for low pay. Sarah and I pulled aside the broken boards and stepped inside with our flashlights. The tunnel stretched ahead, dark and waiting. Stay close, I said. We moved deeper into the mine, our lights revealing the same scene I'd seen before. Rails, support beams, water dripping from the ceiling. But now I noticed something I'd missed in the darkness before. Numbers, carved into the support beams at regular intervals. What are these? Sarah asked. Dates, maybe? Years? We kept going, following the sequence. The numbers increased as we went deeper. 1977, 1984, 1991, 1998. Future years. Years that hadn't happened yet. This is insane, Sarah whispered. We reached a point where the tunnel split into two branches. The left branch had collapsed, sealed with rocks and debris. The right branch continued deeper, and that's where the lights were coming from. Not flashlights, a different kind of light, blue-white, pulsing, like electricity but not quite. We followed it. The tunnel opened into a large chamber, and what I saw there made my breath catch. Equipment, scientific equipment from the 1950s, still set up, still running somehow. Banks of machines with dials and switches, cables running everywhere. And in the center of it all, something that looked like a combination of a mining drill and a particle accelerator. And standing in front of it, studying the controls, was me. This version was different from the others. He was wearing civilian clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt. He had a beard, graying. He looked older, maybe 50. He turned when he heard us approach. Daniel Cross? I asked. Sheriff Daniel Cross, retired, he said. Year 1993. I'm from your future, 16 years from now. Sarah raised her flashlight, trying to see him better. I can barely see you. You're like a ghost. I'm not fully here. My timeline doesn't connect cleanly with yours. I'm fractured across too many moments. He looked at me. You're experiencing it now, aren't you? Meeting yourself everywhere, living moments out of order. Yes. What's causing it? He gestured to the machine. This, Project Kronos. The coal company thought they could mine resources from other times, bring future coal into the present. They built this machine to create temporal bridges, windows into other moments, but they didn't understand what they were doing. When they activated it in 1952, it didn't create a bridge. It created a rupture. And the disaster. Was the rupture trying to heal itself? Time has a kind of immune system. When you tear a hole in it, it tries to close the wound. The collapse was reality's way of sealing the breach. But it didn't work completely. The machine was buried but not destroyed. And it's still active, still pulling at time, still creating fractures. I looked at the equipment, at the cables, and the pulsing lights. Can we shut it down? I've been trying for years. In my timeline, the fracturing got so bad that the whole town started experiencing it. People living days out of order, seeing themselves everywhere, unable to tell past from present from future. Most of them went insane, the ones who didn't fled. So Millwood becomes a ghost town? In some timelines, yes. In others, it's worse. He pulled out a photograph and handed it to me. It showed Main Street. But wrong. Buildings that existed in multiple states at once, new and old and ruined simultaneously. People frozen mid-step, caught between moments. And in the center of it all, the sheriff's station, with dozens of versions of me standing outside, all looking at the camera. This is what happens if we don't stop it, future me said. The fracturing spreads. Eventually, the entire region becomes temporally unstable. Past, present, and future all existing at once. How do we stop it? He pointed to the machine. Someone has to go into the temporal field, manually shut it down from the inside. But doing that means experiencing all timelines simultaneously. It would fracture you completely. You'd exist in every moment at once. That sounds like dying. It's worse than dying. It's existing forever, conscious in every possible version of yourself, unable to ever be whole again. I looked at the machine, at the blue-white light pulsing in its core. And if no one does it, then time keeps breaking until there's nothing left but chaos. Sarah grabbed my arm. Daniel, you can't. There has to be another way. Future me shook his head. I've looked. For 16 years, I've looked. This is the only option. Then why haven't you done it? I asked. Because I'm already too fractured. I'm barely here. If I went in, I'd just dissipate. It needs someone who's still mostly whole. Someone who's just starting to fragment. Someone like you are now. I understood then. This was why the bloody me had appeared in the mine earlier. He'd tried to shut down the machine and failed, or succeeded and paid the cost. How long do I have? I asked. Until the cascade becomes irreversible? About 48 hours from when you first started seeing yourself. After that, you'll be too fractured to function. I looked at Sarah. She was crying, shaking her head. There has to be another way, she insisted. There isn't, future me said. I'm sorry, I've lived this 100 times in 100 timelines and it always ends the same way. Someone has to go in. Someone has to sacrifice themselves to stop the fracturing. A sound behind us made us turn. Another me was entering the chamber. This one was wearing my uniform, but it was torn and burned. He was covered in injuries, limping, barely able to stand. Don't listen to him, the injured me said, pointing at future me. He's lying. Shutting down the machine won't stop the fracturing. It'll make it worse. Future me sighed. Daniel from the third timeline, still trying to stop me. You want to destroy us all, injured me said. You want to collapse every timeline into one, and you don't care who gets erased in the process. What's he talking about? I asked. Future me's expression hardened. The truth is, stopping the machine doesn't just end the fracturing. It collapses all timelines back into one, all the versions of us, all the different choices, all the alternate lives. Only one survives. The others cease to exist. That's genocide, Injured Me said. You're murdering every other version of ourselves. I'm preventing reality from tearing itself apart, Future Me shot back. I looked between them, these two versions of myself, arguing about which path led to salvation and which to damnation. Sarah spoke up. How many versions are there? How many different Daniels? Future Me pulled out a notebook, flipped through pages covered in timestamps and calculations. Based on my observations across timelines, there are approximately 47 distinct versions of Daniel Cross currently existing in fractured time. 47. The same number as the men who died in the 1952 disaster. That's not a coincidence, I said. No. Each victim of the original disaster created a fracture point. Your brother Tommy was one of them. When he died, his timeline split. And because you're his brother, you inherited the fracture. You're living his split timeline. I felt dizzy. So I'm only existing because my brother died? We're all only existing because of the disaster. Every version of us is a ghost of that original trauma, playing out different possibilities. The Injured Me took a step forward. And if you shut down the machine, you'll erase all of those possibilities. 46 versions of Daniel Cross will disappear, along with everyone in their timelines. Wives, children, friends, entire lives gone. Or, Future Me countered, the fracturing continues until reality collapses entirely, and everyone dies. All timelines, all possibilities, all gone. I stood there between two versions of myself, both claiming to know the right answer, both asking me to make an impossible choice. Sarah was looking at me, waiting for my decision. How long do we have? I asked. 48 hours, Future Me said. Then we have 48 hours to find a third option, one that doesn't require erasing 46 versions of myself or letting reality collapse. There is no third option, Injured Me said. I've looked. We've all looked. Then we'll look harder. I turned to leave the chamber, Sarah following. Behind me, I heard my future self call out. Daniel, you're going to face a choice. Kill yourself to save everyone, or let everyone die to save yourself. There's no middle ground. I didn't answer. I just kept walking. But as we emerged from the mine into the fading daylight, I knew he was right. In 48 hours, I was going to have to choose. And whatever I chose, I was going to have to live with it. Or die with it. Assuming there was a difference anymore. 24 hours left. I knew because every version of myself I encountered now was counting down. The fractured Daniels had all synced to the same deadline, like we were all parts of one organism responding to the same stimulus. I spent that first night after leaving the mine trying to document everything. Sarah helped, taking notes while I recounted every encounter, every conversation with myself, every detail that might matter. Okay, she said, reviewing the pages. We have 47 versions of you. Some are from the past, some from the future. They're all converging on this moment, this 48-hour window. And at the end of that window, something happens. Someone dies, I said. The bloody me made that clear. But who? Which version? Maybe all of them. Maybe that's what the future me meant by collapse. All the timelines merge, and most of the Daniels get erased. Sarah set down her pen. Can I ask you something? Of course. If you had to choose, if you could only save one timeline, one version of yourself, which would it be? I thought about all the versions I'd seen. The one at the diner, going about his normal day. The exhausted one at the hardware store. The crying one, watching Rachel and Amy at the school. The retired one in the mine, trying to fix everything. The injured one warning against collapse. I don't know, I admitted. They're all me. They all deserve to exist. But they can't. Not according to what you learned. Reality can't support 47 versions of the same person. Then reality needs to try harder. She smiled sadly. That's such a sheriff thing to say, demanding that the laws of physics bend to your will. Laws are meant to be enforced, even the laws of physics. We kept working through the night, trying to find patterns, connections, anything that might point toward a solution. Around 3 a.m., I noticed something. The dates, I said. The ones carved into the support beams in the mine. They weren't random. Sarah pulled out her notes. 1952, 1959, 1966, 1973, 1977, 1984, 1991, 1998. 7-year intervals. And 1952 to now, 1977, is 25 years. But the fracturing started in 1952, and we're seeing it now. Why? Maybe it's cyclical. Every 25 years the fracture becomes active. Or maybe every 25 years someone has to make a choice. Someone has to decide which timeline survives. The phone rang, making us both jump. Sarah answered it. Sheriff's office. She listened, her face going pale. We'll be right there. What is it? They found a body. In the woods near the mine, male, wearing a sheriff's uniform. The caller said it looks like you. We drove out there with our lights flashing. A crowd had gathered, townspeople with flashlights and worried faces. They parted as we approached. The body was lying face down in the leaves, arms stretched out. I could see the uniform, the same as mine, same badge, same gun belt. With Sarah's help, we turned him over. It was me, but wrong. This version was older than future me, maybe 60 years old. His face was weathered, scarred, and he'd been shot 3 times in the chest. Jesus, Sarah whispered. I knelt beside the body, checking for ID. His wallet had the same driver's license as mine, same name, same birth date. But the issue date was 2003, 26 years from now. He came from the future, I said. Far future. Past the next cycle. There was something clutched in his hand. I pried it open and found a piece of paper, folded and worn. I opened it carefully. It was a list. Names and dates. Daniel Cross, September 19, 1977, 2:47 a.m. Murdered Daniel Cross, September 19, 1977, 3:15 a.m. Murdered Daniel Cross, September 19, 1977, 6:30 a.m. Murdered. The list went on. 47 entries. All dated September 19, 1977. All marked murdered. All except one. Daniel Cross, September 19, 1977, 2:47 a.m. Survivor. The original M.E. The one who first responded to the Fletcher House call. It's not a murder, I said, understanding flooding through me. It's an execution. Someone is systematically killing all the other versions to ensure only one survives. Who? Who would do that? I looked down at the body, at the version of me from 2003. We would. I would. One of us is going to kill all the others to collapse the timeline. Sarah backed away. Daniel, that's insane. Is it? Think about it. 47 versions can't all exist. Future me said reality would collapse. So maybe the solution is to force the collapse manually. choose one timeline and eliminate all the others. By murdering yourself 46 times? It's not murder if they're all you. It's pruning, cutting away the excess timelines to save the prime one. And you think that's what you're going to do? In the next 24 hours, you're going to hunt down and kill every other version of yourself? I stared at the list, at my own name repeated 47 times. I don't know, but someone is. We spent the rest of the night searching for the other versions. If there was a serial killer loose, even if that killer was me, we needed to stop it. We found the second body at dawn behind the hardware store. Another me, shot execution style. This one was the tired version I'd seen earlier, the one who looked like he hadn't slept in days. The third was in the church parking lot, slumped against a wall. The fourth was in the woods near the mine entrance. All shot, all dead, all me. "This is happening fast," Sarah said. "Whoever's doing this, they're moving through the timelines quickly. Or time is moving around them. Remember, causality doesn't work normally here." We were heading back to the station when we saw him, standing in the middle of Main Street, a gun in his hand. Me. This version was calm, collected. He was wearing the uniform, but it was pristine, perfectly pressed, like he'd just put it on for the first time. "Daniel," Sarah said quietly. "That's him. That's the killer." I parked the cruiser and got out slowly, hands visible. "Sheriff Cross." He turned to face me. His eyes were cold. Empty. "Sheriff Cross, which timeline?" "The original. 2:47 a.m. response to Fletcher House." "Good. You're on the list to survive." He checked his watch. "I have 19 more to eliminate in the next 12 hours. Please don't interfere. I can't let you kill people. They're not people. They're temporal anomalies, ghosts of possibilities that never should have existed." He raised his gun, pointing it down an alley. "Like him." I looked. Another me was there, backing away, terrified. "Don't," I said. "Please. It's the only way. You know it is. Future me explained it. Collapse the timelines or watch reality tear itself apart." He aimed carefully. I drew my own gun. "I'm ordering you to stand down." He looked at me with something like pity. "You're going to arrest yourself, Sheriff. How does that work exactly?" "I don't know, but I'm not going to let you murder anyone, even if it's us." "Then you're condemning everyone. Every person in this town, every life in every timeline. They all die because you couldn't make the hard choice." We stood there, two versions of the same man, guns pointed at each other, while a third version cowered in the alley behind us. Sarah's voice came from behind me. "Daniel, both of you, please. There has to be another way." The killer me shook his head. "There isn't. I've lived through this in 47 different timelines. I've tried every option. This is the only one that works." "How do you know?" I demanded. "Because I'm the one who survives. In every timeline that doesn't end in total collapse, I'm the Daniel Cross who makes it through. I'm the prime timeline. And my job is to eliminate all the others." "Who made you prime? Who decided your timeline matters more than the others?" "I did, because someone has to. Because hesitation kills everyone." He turned and fired at the alley. The shot echoed through the empty street. When I looked, the other me was gone, just blood on the pavement. 28 down, the killer said. 19 to go. He walked away calmly, reloading his gun. I stood there, shaking, unable to process what I'd just witnessed. I'd watched myself murder myself, and I hadn't stopped it. Sarah grabbed my arm. "We need to protect the others, the other Daniels. We need to warn them." "But how do you warn someone who's you? And how do you know you can trust yourself?" We spent the next hours trying to find and protect the remaining versions. Some we found already dead. Some we found hiding. Some we found preparing to fight back. The retired me from the mine had barricaded himself in the chamber with the temporal machine. "He'll come for me last," he said. "He needs me to shut down the machine after the others are dead." The injured me was lying in wait at the Fletcher house, his own gun ready. I'm not going quietly. He wants to erase my timeline? He can try. The crying me at the school was just sitting on the bench, waiting. I'm already dead. I fractured too far. I can barely hold myself together. Let him end it quickly. And somewhere in the chaos, other versions were hunting the hunter. I found evidence of a firefight near the gas station, bullet holes and blood, but no bodies. Some of the Daniels were fighting back, trying to kill the killer before he killed them. It had become a war. Me versus me, 47 ways. As the hours ticked down, Sarah and I tried to understand the pattern. Who was the killer, really? Which timeline had he come from? We found the answer in the mine, in future me's notebooks. He documented every timeline, every variation. The killer, Sarah read aloud, is from timeline 1A, the first split, the Daniel Cross who responded to the Fletcher call at exactly 2:47 a.m., not 2:47:15 or 2:46:45, the absolute first version. "That's me," I said. "That's my timeline." "No," she said, showing me the notebook. "Look at the timestamps. You arrived at 2:47:15, your timeline 1B. The killer is 3 seconds earlier than you." 3 seconds. My entire existence, my claim to being real, was based on being 3 seconds too late. So, I'm not the prime timeline? According to this, no. You're the first alternate. The killer is prime. I sank into a chair in the mine chamber, surrounded by the humming equipment that had caused all of this. So, he's right. He's the one who should survive. Daniel. Being first doesn't make you more real, doesn't it? In a timeline collapse, someone has to be the baseline, the one that all the others merge into, and it makes sense that it's the very first one, the original timeline. But that's not you. No, it's not. I looked at the machine, at the pulsing blue light at its core. I thought about all the versions of me I'd met. The happy one with Rachel and Amy, the tired one, the crying one, the retired one trying to fix everything. They were all me, all valid, all deserving of existence. But they couldn't all exist. And if I wasn't prime, then my timeline was one of the ones that needed to be erased. "How long until the deadline?" I asked. Sarah checked her watch. 6 hours. "And how many Daniels are left?" According to the list, the killer has eliminated 34. 13 remain, including you and him. 13 versions, all converging toward the same moment. The moment when one would survive and the others would cease to exist. I made a decision. I need you to take me to him, to the killer. Daniel, no. If he's prime, if he's the one who's supposed to survive, then I need to talk to him. I need to understand why. We drove through town, following the trail of bodies and blood. We found him at the sheriff's station, my station, waiting outside like he knew I'd come. I got out of the cruiser. Sarah stayed inside, her gun ready but not drawn. "You came," the killer said. "I was hoping you would. I know you're prime. I know you're the original timeline. Does that make it easier? No, but I need to understand. Why does it have to be this way? Why can't we all exist?" He gestured to the town around us. "Look, really look." I looked, and for the first time, I saw it. The fractures weren't just affecting me, they were affecting everything. Buildings flickered between different states of repair. Cars appeared and disappeared. People walked past each other without seeing each other, each trapped in their own timeline. "It's spreading," he said. "Every hour that passes, more of reality becomes unstable. Soon, it won't just be 47 versions of you. It'll be 47 versions of everyone, 47 versions of every moment, and then those will split again and again, until there's nothing left but infinite fractured possibilities, none of them fully real. So, killing the other Daniels stops it? It's the first step. Once there's only one of me, I can shut down the machine. Collapse all the timelines back into one. But it only works if I'm the sole survivor. If any other Daniel exists, the fracturing continues." I looked at my hands. They were starting to flicker just slightly. I was fragmenting further even as we spoke. "How do you know you'll survive? Maybe shutting down the machine will erase you too. Maybe. But someone has to try, and I'm the only one willing to do what's necessary." He raised his gun, pointing it at me. "I'm sorry, Daniel, but your timeline ends here." I didn't draw my weapon. I just stood there looking at myself, at the man I could have been if I'd arrived 3 seconds earlier to a domestic disturbance call. "Do it," I said. His finger tightened on the trigger. And then Sarah shot him. He fell, clutching his shoulder, his gun clattering away. Sarah ran forward, kicking the weapon aside. "You're not killing anyone else," she said. "I don't care what timeline you're from." The killer looked up at her, blood seeping between his fingers. "You don't understand. You just condemned everyone." "Then we'll find another way." I knelt beside him, beside myself, and looked into eyes that were my own. "She's right. There has to be another way." "There isn't. I've looked." "Then we'll look harder." 4 hours left. 12 versions of Daniel Cross remaining, and somewhere in the fractured timelines, a solution that no one had found yet. But I was a sheriff. Finding solutions was my job, even when the problem was myself. 3 hours left, and I called a meeting. It took Sarah most of that time to find the remaining versions of me and convince them to come. Some were hiding, some were fighting, some had given up entirely. But eventually, we gathered them all in one place. The Millwood High School gymnasium, at exactly midnight. 12 versions of Sheriff Daniel Cross sitting in a circle in the empty basketball court. We were all there. The prime killer, his shoulder bandaged where Sarah had shot him. The retired future me from 2003, the injured me from Timeline 3, the exhausted me from the hardware store, the crying me who'd watched Rachel, the clean-shaven me from the gas station, the bearded me who'd tried to warn himself, and 5 others I hadn't met before, each one a variation on the same life, the same choices. 12 versions of the same man, all living different lives, all facing the same death. I stood in the center of the circle. Sarah stood guard at the door, making sure no one left, no one came in. "Thank you for coming," I said, which felt absurd. "Thanking yourself for showing up to your own execution." The prime me, the killer, spoke up. "This is pointless. We know how this ends. One survives, the rest disappear. Delaying just makes it worse." "Maybe," I said. "But before anyone dies, I want to understand something. I want each of you to tell me about your timeline, about your life, about the choices that made you different from the rest of us." "Why?" asked the retired Emmy. "Because if we're going to decide which Daniel Cross deserves to exist, we should know what we're choosing between." Silence. Then the crying me, the one who'd watched Rachel at the school, spoke. "In my timeline, I fought for my marriage. When Rachel said she was leaving, I didn't let her go. I quit drinking, started therapy, actually tried to be a husband instead of just a badge with a pulse. We worked it out. We're happy. Amy's in 3rd grade. She wants to be a veterinarian. He paused. That's worth existing for. The exhausted me went next. In my timeline, I saved someone. There was a fire at the elementary school 3 years from now. A little boy trapped on the 2nd floor. In most timelines, he dies. In mine, I got there in time, pulled him out, burned my hands doing it, but he lived. He's 6 years old now. He draws pictures of firefighters. He looked at his scarred hands. That's worth existing for. The retired ME spoke. In my timeline, I stopped the killer. Not this one. A different one. Serial killer working the Appalachian towns in the 80s. He'd killed 17 people in other timelines. In mine, I caught him after his 3rd victim. Saved 14 lives. He met my eyes. That's worth existing for. One by one, they shared their stories. The me who became sheriff at age 30 instead of 35 and had 5 extra years to make a difference. The me who reconnected with Tommy's daughter Amy, raised her like my own, gave her a life she didn't have in other timelines. The me who solved the cold case of Jenny Mitchell, brought her killer to justice after 20 years. Each one had a valid claim to existence. Each one had made choices that mattered, that saved lives, that made the world better in some small way. Even the prime me, the killer, had his story. In my timeline, I'm the only one who saw the truth, the only one willing to do what's necessary to prevent total collapse. I've killed 34 versions of myself to save everyone else. That's worth existing for, even if it makes me a murderer. When he finished, I looked around the circle at 12 faces that were all mine, 12 lives that were all mine, 12 futures that couldn't all exist. Here's what I understand, I said. We're all valid, we all deserve to exist. But reality can't support all of us. The fracture is spreading, and soon it won't just be us. It'll be everyone in this town, then everyone in the region, then everyone in the world. Infinite versions of infinite people, none of them fully real. So, we need to collapse the timelines, the Prime Me said, which means all but one of us dies. No, I said. I think we're looking at this wrong. We've been thinking of this as elimination, but what if it's integration? The retired me leaned forward. What do you mean? The temporal machine in the mind doesn't just fracture timelines. It connects them. That's what it was designed for, to bridge different moments, different possibilities. So, what if instead of trying to eliminate all the versions, we integrate them, merge them together? That's impossible, the injured me said. You can't merge 47 different lives into one consciousness. Why not? We're all the same person. Same memories up until the moment of fracture. Same personality, same core self. The only differences are the choices we made after the split. So, what if we choose to make those differences compatible instead of competitive? Sarah spoke up from the door. Daniel, what are you proposing? I'm proposing we all go into the temporal machine. Together. Simultaneously. And instead of one timeline killing the others, we merge. We become one Daniel Cross who remembers all 47 lives, who has all our experiences, all our choices, all our futures. That would destroy us, the Prime Me said. The human mind can't handle that much information, that many contradictory memories. Maybe. But maybe that's the cost. Maybe becoming whole again means losing pieces of ourselves, but at least we'd all exist, in some form. No one gets erased completely. The retired ME was nodding slowly. In quantum physics, they call it superposition. existing in multiple states simultaneously until observation collapses them into one. What if we don't collapse? What if we stay in superposition? We'd be conscious in all states at once, I said. We'd remember being prime, remember saving the boy from the fire, remember raising Amy, remember catching the serial killer. All of it, all at once. That's insanity, the prime me said. Maybe. Or maybe it's enlightenment. Maybe it's the only way to be truly whole. Silence fell over the gymnasium. 12 versions of me, considering whether to commit collective suicide by merger or individual murder by elimination. Finally, the crying me spoke. I vote for merger. I don't want Rachel and Amy to disappear, even if I have to share my consciousness with 46 other versions of myself to keep them real. The exhausted me raised his hand. I'm in. The boy I saved deserves to exist. One by one, they voted. Some reluctantly, some eagerly, some with resignation. The prime me was the last to speak. This might kill us all. Complete annihilation, not merger. I know, I said. But it's the only option that doesn't require murdering ourselves. And I became a sheriff to protect people. Even if those people are me. He nodded slowly. All right, we do it together. We drove to the mine in convoy. 12 patrol cars, all Charlie 1, all containing Sheriff Daniel Cross. Sarah followed in Charlie 2, the only person who could see us all clearly, the only one not fractured. The temporal machine was humming when we arrived, the blue light pulsing faster now. It knew what was coming. The retired me went to the controls. I've studied this for 16 years. If we're going to do this, we need to be precise. Everyone enters the temporal field at exactly the same moment. No one can hesitate. We formed a circle around the machine. 12 men in the same uniform facing the same fate. On 3, the retired ME said. 1. I looked at Sarah, standing outside the circle. Thank you for everything. She was crying. Come back. Whoever you are, when this is over, come back. 2. I thought about all the lives I'd lived, all the choices I'd made, all the versions of myself standing in this circle. We were all valid. We all deserved to exist. 3. We stepped forward into the light. The sensation was beyond description. I was being pulled apart and put back together simultaneously. Every memory of every timeline flooded through me at once. I remembered being 17 when Tommy died, and also being 17 when Tommy lived, when the mine disaster was prevented by early warning systems. I remembered marrying Rachel and divorcing Rachel, and never meeting Rachel because I moved to a different town. I remembered saving the boy from the fire and arriving too late, and never responding to that call because I was in a different timeline entirely. I remembered being prime, being second, being 40th, being last. I remembered killing myself and being killed, and shooting myself and being shot. All of it, all at once. 47 lives in one consciousness. The pain was excruciating. My mind was tearing itself apart trying to reconcile contradictory memories, impossible choices, mutually exclusive realities. But slowly, patterns emerged. The memories started to organize themselves. Not chronologically because chronology didn't apply anymore, but thematically, emotionally, by significance. The important moments rose to the surface. Rachel's smile, Amy's laugh, the boy from the fire alive and drawing, the cold case solved, Tommy's funeral, Tommy's wedding, both, neither, all. And underneath it all, a core truth that was the same in every timeline. I was Daniel Cross. I was the sheriff of Millwood, West Virginia, and I protected people, even when those people were myself. The light faded. The machine's hum slowed and stopped. I was standing in the mind chamber, alone. The other versions were gone, merged, integrated. Part of me now. Sarah ran in, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. "Daniel? Are you okay? Which one are you?" I looked at my hands. They were solid, stable. No flickering. No fragmentation. "I'm all of them," I said. "And none of them. I'm Sheriff Daniel Cross, the only one. Did it work? Are the timelines collapsed?" I checked my memories, sorting through 47 different perspectives. Yes, there's only one timeline now, one Millwood, one reality. I paused. But I remember all the others, all the choices, all the lives. They're still here in my head. Can you handle that? Honestly, I didn't know. My consciousness was stretched across 47 different sets of memories, all claiming to be real because they all had been real. I remembered dying 34 times. I remembered killing myself 34 times. I remembered being Sarah's friend, her boss, her confidant. I remembered being a stranger she'd just met. "I'm going to have to," I said. We walked out of the mine together. The sun was rising over the mountains, casting golden light across the town. Millwood looked different. Or maybe I looked at it differently. I could see it from 47 perspectives at once. The town where I'd grown up, the town where I'd failed, the town where I'd succeeded, the town where I'd never been sheriff at all of them overlaid on top of each other, all equally real in my memory. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "Now I try to live with this. I try to be the sheriff this town needs, with the knowledge of 47 different ways I could fail." That sounds like hell. Or enlightenment. I haven't decided yet. We drove back to the station. It was September 19th, 1977, 6:47 a.m. Exactly 4 hours after the first fracture, though I'd lived through days or weeks or years depending on which timeline you counted. There was a report on my desk. Domestic disturbance, 447 Mullins Road, called in at 2:47 a.m. I had faint memories of responding to it 47 different ways, but the official record showed I'd handled it by the book. Carl Fletcher was sleeping it off in the drunk tank. Donna was safe at her sister's house, just another day in Millwood. Except it wasn't, because I knew now what the town was built on: temporal scars, fractures that had been sealed but never truly healed. The 1952 disaster had torn a hole in time, and that hole was always there, always waiting to tear open again. Sarah brought me coffee. Real coffee from the diner, not the station sludge. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Multiplied, divided, integrated. I don't know. Ask me in 47 different ways and I'll give you 47 different answers. Can you still do the job, be the sheriff?" I thought about all the versions of me. The ones who'd been good at it, the ones who'd failed, the ones who'd sacrificed everything for the badge. I'm going to try. With 47 lifetimes of experience, I should be pretty good at it. She smiled, or 47 lifetimes of mistakes to avoid. That too. The phone rang. Another call, another crisis, another day in the life of a small-town sheriff. I answered it. "Sheriff's office? Cross speaking?" And life went on. 25 years later, on September 17th, 2002, I retired from the Millwood Sheriff's Department. Sarah threw me a party at the station. The whole town came. I was 67 years old, though I remembered being 67 47 times over, living 47 different versions of this moment. In some of my memories, Rachel was at the party. In others, she'd passed away. In others, we'd never reconciled. But in this timeline, the one that had emerged from the merger, she was there. We'd found our way back to each other in the years after the fracture, after I'd stopped being 47 people and learned to be one person with 47 sets of memories. Amy was there too, 33 years old now, a veterinarian just like the crying me had remembered her wanting to be. She'd grown up knowing her uncle the sheriff, never knowing he also remembered timelines where he'd been her father, her stranger, her cautionary tale. As the party wound down and people went home, I stood outside the station, looking at the mountains. Sarah came out to join me. She was 53 now, the chief of police since I'd promoted her 15 years ago. "Thinking about the mine?" she asked. "Always." "Any regrets?" I thought about all the versions of myself I'd merged with that night. The ones who'd fought, the ones who'd surrendered, the ones who'd tried to murder their way to survival. "No," I said. "I made the right choice. We made the right choice. All 47 of you? All 47 of us." She was quiet for a moment. "Do you still see them, the other timelines?" "Sometimes, when I'm tired or dreaming, or just standing still too long. I'll remember something that happened in a different life, a different choice, but they're fading. Year by year, the memories are becoming mine instead of theirs. Integration is working. Good, because this town needs its sheriff to be one person, not 47. The town has you now. You'll do fine." She smiled. "I had a good teacher, 47 times over." I drove home that night to the house I shared with Rachel, the life I'd rebuilt from 47 fractured possibilities. And as I lay in bed, consciousness fading into sleep, I felt it again, that faint hum, that subtle wrongness. The mine was still there, the temporal wound was still there, sealed but not healed. In 25 years, in 2027, it would tear open again. Another version of Daniel Cross would face the same choice: collapse or integrate, murder or merger. But that was a problem for future sheriffs, future versions of whoever I'd become by then. For now, I was just Daniel Cross. One man, one life, one consciousness, 47 times over. And that was enough. If you're reading this, you're probably wondering which version of Sheriff Daniel Cross told you this story. Was it the prime timeline? The one who arrived at 2:47:00 exactly? Was it the first alternate who arrived at 2:47:15? Was it one of the 47 at all, or some merged consciousness that claimed to be all of them? The truth is, I don't know anymore. I remember telling this story 47 times, in 47 different ways to 47 different audiences. I remember being the hero and the villain and the victim all at once. What I do know is this: time is not as linear as you think. Your choices matter, but they also don't. You are one person, but you're also every version of yourself that could have been, living in parallel, making different decisions, walking different paths. And sometimes, if you're unlucky or enlightened or chosen by temporal anomalies, you get to meet those other versions. You get to see what you could have been, what you still might be, what you never were. I was Sheriff Daniel Cross. I am Sheriff Daniel Cross. I will be Sheriff Daniel Cross. 47 times over, all at once, forever. And if you ever find yourself in Millwood, West Virginia, if you ever drive past the old Blackwood mine with its boarded-up entrance and its warning signs, you might see something strange. You might see a sheriff standing there looking at the mountain, and if you look closely you'll see he's flickering, just slightly, like he exists in multiple moments at once. That's me. That's all of me. Still watching. Still protecting. Still trying to keep the fracture from spreading. Because someone has to. Even if that someone is 47 versions of the same person, even if that someone arrested himself to save himself, even if that someone is everyone and no one all at once, forever. I'm Sheriff Daniel Cross, and I always will be.